This is the independent sample t-test video, and we want to go through this, and it'll be a step-by-step process of how to write up your independent sample t-test, and also including definition. So the definition of an independent sample t-test is it determines whether there's a statistically significant difference between the means of two groups, unrelated groups, and that's the key word, is unrelated. In the idea that we did a one sample t-test, which shows the mean versus a criterion value or a test value. Now we're going to look at the means of two unrelated groups, such as male, female, yes, no. Okay, those are things, they're unrelated. Male can't be related to female, female can't be related to male. Yes and no are totally separate. There's no maybe in between. Okay. So this is output. Remember, output is after you put in your data and you run your analysis, you get this. It gives you all the answers you need. Everything you need is sitting right in front of you. We may not use everything there, but this is what's going to come out when you actually do it. So let's talk about what's important. These right here, these three right here, where it says EE, which is emotional exhaustion, junior, and senior. Those are your variables. Okay? These two are what you're running your independent sample t-test on. Okay? You're running it against the emotional exhaustion. So if you were asked what are the variables, you would put EE, junior, senior. It's basically all in this one box right here. Okay, the N here, there was 12 juniors and 18 seniors. Okay, and we're going to do some erasing as we go along here too. So the next one up is your mean. And in this test, we're looking at the two unrelated groups, and we are going to first look at between the means, and then we're going to look at the means individually to draw the end conclusion. Okay, the first portion we'll talk about between the means. So what does between the means means? Between these two, one is higher than the other. So in this case, the seniors were higher than the juniors. So we're talking about something like emotional exhaustion, which means that the players were either going to be emotionally exhausted or not. So in this case, we can say that 29.61 for the seniors, okay, 29.61, and for the juniors, it was 17.83. Okay, 29 is higher than 17. So in this case, we can draw a conclusion right from those two numbers right there, that the seniors were higher than the juniors in emotional exhaustion. And when we get later on, we'll discuss each of them individually because it's very important for your conclusion. Here is your standard deviations, and remember, we're going to the hundredths place. So we would round this up to 8.01, and this one would go to 7.55. Okay, because you see the 7 and you see the 9, they're higher, so they would go. So I'm going to talk about this section right here, which is your Levene's test for equality of variances. I'm going to touch on it, but there'll be another video in the room that goes over it a little more in detail. We have to decide whether it varies enough. Okay? And you'll see there over here where it says equal variance is assumed and equal variance is not assumed. Okay, and I'm not going to go too much in detail on this portion of it. Understand that these two correspond with these two lines right here. Okay, this is very simple. Don't have to remember, the F and the sig are basically the same thing. We're going to deal with the sig. Okay, and we are going to deal with this number right here, the 669. Okay, 0.669. Ooh, hello. Why is it still yellow? 669. Okay, 0.669. Again, it is a p-value, and it is above 0.05. If the Levene's test equality is above 0.05, okay, then we take the first line, equal variance is assumed. If it was below, then we are going to go with equal variance is not assumed. So in essence, as long as this number is above 0.05, we are using this number right here, this line right here. So we would use the negative 4.09, we would use 28, and we would use 0.000 on this line right here. If this number had been 0.04, we would then use the bottom line and we would report the T, the DF, and the sig two-tailed. Okay? And we're going to touch base on those to put them into the formula. Okay? Remember, 0.000 is below 0.05, so that it is significant. This is the actual write-up, and we're going to go through each one step by step, okay, including the conclusion, because some of us are struggling with the conclusion, and in essence, I have told you in class or online, I have told you that you have to write it exactly like it is. Well, I was a little bit wrong in that one, that the last place is the conclusion, which you have to reword so it makes sense. Okay, so let's get going. Your introductory sentence. To investigate participants' perceptions on grade, which would be junior and senior, and emotional exhaustion. Okay, so here are your variables. Grade meaning junior and senior. Junior and senior. Okay, so if we're going to have this thing, when you write this, to investigate participant perceptions, now this portion right here can change. You have to write it based on what it is. So this is changeable. Okay, it's got to be readable. Okay, and on grade and emotional exhaustion, an independent sample t-test was calculated. This stays the same. So you need this, but you have to really look at it, because you may not be investigating perceptions. You may be just looking at the demographic of gender, or a yes/no question. Okay, so the next thing that happens is go to the results section. It's that sentence, I'm sorry. Results of the analysis showed a significance. Now this is either going to be significant or non-significant difference in emotional exhaustion. And then you have your formula. Okay, we're going to jump ahead. And you see how it's here. T, 28, negative 4.05. P is less than. This is italicized, and the T is italicized over here. The T is italicized. So in this case, it was a significant difference because this was 0, 0, 0. And then you have to put, and you're going to continue to tell the story over and over again of what their variables are. Okay, so this would be your results section sentence. Okay, so in this case, we are now looking at the T, the DF, and the sig two-tailed. So the formula being written is T, no space, and then this would be the DF. Okay, that DF here is 28. That's that number right there. Equals, there's a space between both sides, and then you're going to put the T value, which is right here. Okay, and that's negative 4.09. Okay, comma, P is, because it's 0, 0, 0, is less than 0.05. Okay, so now I'm going to go back. Okay, so your mean sentence, again, there is a significant difference between athletes and the theme of emotional exhaustion. Now, in this case, we're using themes, and I'm not going to get too much into it. It could be, athletes and the question of, are you a professional athlete? Okay. Now, whereas we did a one sample t-test where there was one sample, which means you had one mean, now you have two means. This is where the story starts to move toward your conclusion. Okay? You're going to post your mean and your standard deviation. It should look just like this. You see the spaces and everything else. So we have the mean in here, and you have the standard deviation for the seniors, and then you have them for the juniors. Okay? Italicized M, italicized SD, space equals numbers is SD equals space on either side, and there's your number. Okay, this comes and it should look just like this. Now these words can change a little based on what type of variable you're using. So yes, it's got to be the same. So this portion will stay the same, but when you get to here, you're going to have the between the two, whatever the two are from here, and you have to read it and see if it makes sense and adjust it. It's okay to make mistakes. Okay? The key is, when I'm looking at it, did you get all the information that I'm asking for? I'll return something if it's really bad and you can redo it. It's not a problem. But I need something on the page that looks reminiscent. If you turn it in at the last minute, probably not going to do it. If you're in my Fullerton class, there's no option for me to return it to you. So it is an assignment. It is clear. It is clear cut. Directly from right here. Okay? So you take these for your means, and this is junior and this is senior. Okay? So, drawing the conclusion from the means. Okay, so we had a mean of for the juniors of 17.83. We had a mean for the seniors of 29.61. Okay. In this case, if you remember back to when we did the one sample t-test, and it's the same for this one. It can be different in different studies, but in this class we're going to stay with this. We had a mean of 15 in the one sample t-test, and I'm not going to go into detail on that, but just take my word for it. It's a mean of 15. It has to do with how many questions were asked in the theme of emotional exhaustion. There were 5. The mean for the 1 through 5 is 3. So 3 times 5 is 15, okay? Just stay with me on this. So when we draw the ultimate conclusion for your homework and any test that you have, you're going to take that number of 15 and you're going to look at each one separately. Now we looked at it as a whole and said one was greater than the other. The juniors were higher than the seniors. Now we're going to look at them individually to understand if, because you could have one higher than the other. If this number had been like 12, your answer would be completely different. You would still have your seniors higher than your juniors, but your juniors would be less emotionally exhausted. In this case, the seniors are much higher than the juniors, but if I take that 15 and I point it toward 17.83, the juniors are slightly emotionally exhausted because it's a very small gap here. It's only about 2.83. Now the seniors, if I take their 29.61 and then look at the 15, okay, match it to the 15, okay, the seniors are highly emotionally exhausted. So again, whatever this number is, so if we're looking at mile times, which of course is my favorite, and I have I'm doing an independent sample between the male and the female in the class, and I put 7 minutes down, and the males are at let's say 9 minutes, and the females are at 8 minutes. Okay. Yes, the females are doing better than the males, but which is true, but then the females are just much closer to the mean time of 7 versus the males that are farther away. So it can be done in any instance where you are looking at two separate, unrelated numbers. Again, here is our output. Here's our means where we'll draw our conclusions. We need to be able to report these. We need to understand the variables. We need to understand this number right here to choose between this and this. We need to know this number, this number, this number for our data. We need to be able to analyze these together, the mean together, and separately to be able to write your concluding statement. So now our conclusion. Therefore, to examine the amount of emotional exhaustion of athletes. Okay, that's kind of an inter-sentence here. The seniors were highly emotionally exhausted, whereas the juniors were slightly emotionally exhausted. No numbers, no nothing. You've already done that before. Here is your conclusion. You'll see that because they were much higher than 15, we're going to note that. And these guys were low. We're gonna show that they were slightly emotionally exhausted. And then here is the entire write-up. This portion down here, from the therefore, you have to look to see what words are going to work to show what you're doing. Okay? Again, up here, this is for this test. It may not be for your test. Okay? I will post in there a description of what actual test you're going to be looking at, and then you have to word this. Okay? Most of the rest of the stuff stays exactly as it is. Okay? See where it says theme? Those things may change due to the factor of what you're testing. You might be looking at just a single question of yes and no. So you need to know what the variables are you're looking at, and then write it up. I'm not so much stressed about whether or not you get this perfectly, the words perfectly exact, like for theme and the perceptions and that, but these things like what test are you running? Do you know your variables? This being done correctly. Okay? This being done correctly, except for maybe a word here. These especially, this right here. And these right here, the means and standard deviation. And did you draw a conclusion? From this video, you should be able to, on any of them, any independent sample t-test, be able to draw a conclusion. Okay? So, that is this one. Make sure you have it in on time.